Hey, what's up YouTube? My name is Angorabuilds. I'm an architectural technologist based out of Western Canada, and I model buildings in 3D for a living. I also stream about 3D modeling and home design on Twitch. For the past few months, we've been working through my basement bathroom renovation. I have parts 1 and parts 2 of this series posted already if you want to take a peek at the design phase and the actual construction phase of this bathroom. And now it is all done. I'm super excited about it. I think it's really beautiful. The construction video did spend a lot of time talking about a lot of the design pivots that we made and a lot of the roadblocks that we ran into, but I didn't really have time to talk about the actual execution of things and if it was done well or not. I want to show where we made mistakes in our construction, because at the end of the day, while I am an architectural technologist and I do work in the industry, I am not a tradesperson. I understand how to do it in theory. How to do it in theory is my job, but the execution is a whole different ballgame. We made quite a few mistakes with this renovation. We'll go through the whole thing and I'll just talk a little bit about what happened. So I think the biggest showcase of our amateur DIY experience is in the tile job. Touched on it a bit in the first video about how we did not do all of the tile in one fell swoop. It ended up being a process that took probably almost over 2 weeks of periodic work just because our schedules were so spotty. While we did this, we left the levelers and the spacers in the tile as we were working, and as it cured, it created this really annoying problem of having to chip them out when we were all done everything. I realized that the mortar that seeps up between the tiles also needs to kind of be chiseled down within 24 hours. And because I didn't do that, I spent a whole weekend going in with a Dremel and sanding the concrete down or the mortar down so that we could grout. Because of this chipping that we had to do, there was quite a few nicks and divots in the tiles. You can kind of see we have points where it chipped. This one was particularly bad. There was also some misalignments in some areas. The 12 by 24s I think were a good size for learning, but they were still quite large. And it's not the cleanest in terms of spacing in certain spots too, especially like towards the higher rows, I think, when things really get thrown off of alignment. There was also a couple spots where the wall was slightly bowed in the framing. So we have some points where the tile isn't really sitting as level and flush. There's some points where you can see that it's raised a little bit higher than others. Is this a normal thing with tiling? Like every tile job is always going to have some misalignments? I don't really know if that's quite the case. So I mean, while it's installed, and I think like especially from afar, it looks really, really good. If you start inspecting closely, you can tell that this was our first rodeo for sure. The next thing I wanted to talk about was our beautiful caulking along the shower, along the roof here. We didn't know if we should caulk along the slats or not, but we felt like it was probably the best way to finish the transition between where the tile and the ceiling met. This is our first time really doing any kind of like silicone or caulking work. And while I think that we did pretty good, like some spots are really, really clean, sometimes you get to other areas like the corner. And I think this is where you can really see some of our amateur experience with the finishing of things. We definitely got much better at it as we went, but it's every time I walk in here, I see it, I notice it. On our slat ceiling, this is kind of funny. This was our first time installing tongue and groove anything. It's something we'll be doing in our van eventually, so we wanted to use this opportunity to practice. I was able to source a sauna grade tongue and groove cedar from a member of my family. We installed this tongue and groove cedar and it went up pretty quick. We did it in an evening. But literally right when we were done installing it, I received a text message from my family member and he said, "Oh, hey, just to let you know, before you install your tongue and groove cedar, that when you are nailing it to the joists on the roof, hold the slat up and nail inside the groove, not on the face of the tongue and groove cedar, so that you don't see any nail heads." Well, he texted this to me after, like literally like the hour after we had finished this. So you can see on our ceiling, we have a lot of nail holes. It's something that whenever I'm down here and I look at it now, I feel very, I feel like we could have did this a lot better knowing what we know now. The drywall. This project was our first crack at drywall, and honestly, I think it looks really good. We had a friend of ours who has experience in drywall help us with the actual mudding and taping aspect of things. But you know, at the end of the day, it's still not perfect. I don't know if we didn't sand this down enough or if we didn't mud this enough, but there's definitely some spots where I notice the irregularities of the drywall more than others. The nice thing about drywall, though, is that even though there's some imperfections, I think it's an easy fix if someone were to ever paint the bathroom again. So I'm not too caught up about it. The mirror, this one makes me mad. These mirrors were on sale for $48 Canadian, and now I think I know why. It was so difficult to mount this mirror to the wall using just the 2 screw points, and the mirror itself wasn't super flat. So we kind of had to push it pretty firm against the drywall to make it flat enough to mount to the screw points. But in doing so, the metal heads of the screws scratched off the reflective surface on the mirror at 2 points. And so every time I look in the mirror, every time I wash my hands, I can see where the reflective film was removed, and it makes me really sad. The mirror is so beautiful from far away. 2 more things. So you saw in the first video that the shower pan that we ended up buying had a smaller footprint than the original one that was here. So when we installed it, we had to kind of rejig the flooring in this bathroom to decrease the size of the gap, but it wasn't quite small enough. So we needed to install this PVC trim along the shower base as well. And we did this with a construction adhesive, but Krish also got a couple nails in place just to hold it while it was drying. You can see along the trim in a few spots, the nails are visible. If you know how to patch these, let me know. Yeah, it's not very nice looking. So, and then I think the last major up that I notice, and it drives me crazy, but I don't know if anybody else would notice. I mentioned in the construction video that the trim in this bathroom was 3 inches high. That was what the existing trim was, so we needed to match it for all around the perimeter base and the door. But when we went to the store, they only had 3.5. So we bought it, and oh, you can see the imperfections even in our trim. Maybe I'll just make this a whole thing. Trim installation and imperfections. This was old trim that we reused, so it was a reinstall of what was already existing. So we cut down the trim on the tile that we adhered to the tile to be 3 inches tall so that it matched on the other side. But when we got to the window casing, we got a little bit lazy and didn't really feel like cutting it down to 3 inches. Plus, we didn't want to have an exposed raw edge. So we just opted to put the 3.5 around the window casing. Because the wall is bowed under here, we struggled to make the joints mudded clean, but the trim around the window is a different size than the trim around the wall base, and it kind of bothers me, but I don't know, like, would anybody else notice this, or is this just a me thing? I notice it. It drives me crazy. I think it's just kind of disproportionate to the rest of the bathroom. It just looks large, you know? And then I guess the last thing, but it's not a super big deal, is the existing shower head protrusion off of the wall. It was not quite as long as it should be for a conventional shower. Our ceiling height is still a little bit lower, so it kind of creates this weird relationship with the lower part of the shower and the upper part of the shower. The angle is just kind of unnatural. It actually sits off the wall so very slightly. Again, this is something that the next homeowners could probably swap out and just have a singular shower head, and then you wouldn't have this problem. It's no big deal. And that's it. That's all. Everything else that was in terms of like hiccups or roadblocks were covered in the construction video previous to this one. I just wanted to showcase some of the imperfections and the mistakes that we made in the actual application of the finishes and the accessories and stuff like that. Again, this is our first crack at a bathroom renovation ourselves, so we are learning. For our first time, I think we did pretty okay. I do want to be as transparent with every aspect of the design and the construction process as possible. So thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in keeping up, my next renovation project after this will be our kitchen in our upstairs, as well as our bathroom on the main floor. I'm designing those live on stream right now as we speak. If you follow me on YouTube or you follow me on Twitch, I'm pretty regular about updating my schedule as well. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye!